In this video, we're going to talk about what the work week is. So the Fair Labor Standards Act is very specific with this, even in terms of numbers. So they defined a work week as a period of 168 hours during 7 consecutive 24-hour periods. It's very wordy, but I'm thankful and grateful that they were specific enough to say exactly what it is. Sometimes they're kind of vague, but in this case, they said 7 consecutive 24-hour periods, which is basically like saying in English, 7 calendar days. So this work week can begin any day and hour of the week, and it can be established by you, the employer. So each work week stands alone and cannot be averaged. You're probably saying, well, Stephen, what in the heck does that mean? Each work week stands alone and cannot be averaged. In other words, when you're calculating hours and overtime, you have to look at the single individual work week. You're not combining weeks or averaging them. That's not how it works. Each work week stands alone when you're calculating hours and overtime. So if I can give you any tip with this, remember the 7-day rule. So whenever your work week begins, that begins the period where you must start calculating hours for purposes of overtime calculations. So you have to determine when that is, what day and time. So also remember, it can begin the day and the time you specify. You're in home health and hospice, or you're just in home health, you get to start that whatever time and day you want. If you want to start at 11 p.m. or 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, you can do that. It doesn't have to be Monday at 8 o'clock a.m. or Sunday at 12 o'clock a.m. It doesn't have to be any of that. You get to decide when it is. Now, it's kind of a dance because you must be consistent and you cannot change it constantly. So in other words, you can't just say, well, look, I keep having overtime happening at this time of the year, so I'm going to switch the pay period or the work week this week, and next week I'm going to change it to something different. The week after that, I'm going to change it to something different because I don't want to pay my employees overtime. The Department of Labor will slap a penalty on you so fast if you do that. So whatever you do, change your work week and it must be permanent. The government is looking at it as permanent. Now, they haven't defined what permanence could be, but to me, it's pretty simple. You shouldn't jump back and forth between it more than every 6 to 7 years or even further along than that. I would tell you when you set your work week, you could set it and set it permanently. But here's something also that you need to keep in mind. It can be different for different groups. So if you want to pay the people who are your per visit staff a certain work week and a certain pay period, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that. If you want to pay people who are your office staff at a different time, you can do that. So it's completely up to you. You get to define that, but you must document it carefully and you must be consistent with the groups that you're paying. So here's the first example. There's a non-exempt certified nursing assistant who works the following schedule. So as you can see, the work week starts on a Monday and it ends on a Sunday. This is sometimes really generic and sometimes so cookie cutter you don't know the difference. But if you look at their total hours, the work week total is 40.25 hours. And the example is just saying this company wants Monday through Sunday to be the work week. In the second example, you got the same non-exempt CNA working for a different home healthcare company, but they start their work week on Wednesday, and then it ends on the following Tuesday. So keep in mind that when you establish the work week, you get to establish the day and the time. I suggest doing a deep dive to look and see when overtime accrues. Maybe you start to see a pattern that overtime starts to accrue on a certain day and time. So if you find out that sweet spot, you can say, well, look, we're going to change the work week begin time a little bit before that because maybe it'll get to a point where we are able to not have as much overtime from a budgetary purpose. But again, you're not going to change this every single time. You're only going to change this once for the long run. So the long run meaning you can go 10 years without changing this. But again, it can be different for different groups. But in this case, you can see that it changes at a different day and time, and it can be that way for different groups as well.